The hall of the Galactic Assembly was larger than any human building ever made. It was not tall like a tower, but wide, stretching outward in soft curves, as if it had grown instead of being built. Lights floated in the air like slow stars, changing color to match the mood of the speakers. Languages overlapped gently, filtered through translation fields that made every voice sound calm and clear. Evan Cole stood near the back, hands folded, trying very hard not to look like he did not belong. He was not a diplomat. He was not a soldier, a scientist, or anyone important. He was a cultural systems analyst, which mostly meant he read reports and wrote notes about human behavior so aliens could understand humans better. Normally, people like him stayed on Earth, but someone had decided that having a normal human present at the first full cultural exchange summit would look good. So here he was, wearing a simple suit that suddenly felt too small, surrounded by beings who had crossed light years just to talk. The summit was supposed to be boring. Evan had been told this many times. It was ceremonial, symbolic, speeches, hand gestures, shared food samples that no one would actually eat, nothing unexpected. That was the rule. Rules, however, did not seem to notice humans very often. The alien delegate named Sarai stepped forward when it was her turn. She was from the Lithery, a species known across the galaxy for their strict traditions and emotional control. They looked almost delicate, with smooth, pale skin that reflected light softly and eyes like polished glass. Their movements were careful, graceful, and slow. Sarai was young by her people's standards, though Evan only knew that because he had read it in a briefing. She wore a simple ceremonial wrap marked with thin silver lines, symbols of lineage and duty. She spoke calmly, her voice steady as the translation field carried her words. "The Lithari acknowledge humanity's arrival among the stars," she said. "We recognize their curiosity, adaptability, and unusual social flexibility." There were polite lights of approval around the hall. Evan relaxed slightly. This was going exactly as planned. Then Sarai turned her head. Her eyes found Evan. At first, he thought it was a mistake. He looked behind him, half expecting someone more important to be standing there. No one was. Just a wall and a confused human. Sarai's gaze did not move. She took one more step forward. "After observation," she continued, "I have made a personal and lawful decision." The word lawful caused a ripple of attention. Several delegates leaned forward. The lights shifted, curious now. Evan's stomach tightened for no clear reason. "I declare," Sarai said clearly and without hesitation, "that the human Evan Cole is my chosen mate." The universe stopped. Not literally, of course, but sound vanished from the hall in a way Evan had never experienced. The translation field did not soften the words. It did not explain them away, it simply delivered them. Sharp and complete. Evan forgot how to breathe. He laughed once, quietly, because that was what humans sometimes did when something was too strange to be real. No one else laughed. Sarai lifted her chin slightly, a gesture Evan's briefing described as finality. "I make this declaration of my own will," she added. "I accept all consequences under Lithari and galactic law." The lights around the hall shifted again, this time flashing warning colors Evan did not know the names for. A tall, many-limbed official near the central platform moved quickly, speaking in a language the translator struggled to smooth. When the translation caught up, the voice sounded strained. "Delegate Sarai," the official said, "you are aware that such a declaration—" "I am aware," Sarai replied calmly. "This is not a binding exchange ritual," another voice cut in. "It is symbolic only." "For humans," Sarai said, "not for Lithari." Evan's heart began to pound. He raised a hand without thinking. The universal human sign for "please stop. This is getting out of control." He said, and immediately every translation field locked onto him. Hundreds of eyes turned. "I think there's been a misunderstanding." Evan said slowly, choosing the simplest words he could find. I didn't agree to anything. I don't even know what just happened. Sarai turned fully toward him now. Her expression softened just a little. I know, she said. That somehow made it worse. The assembly descended into controlled chaos. No one shouted, but dozens of voices spoke at once, all calm, all urgent. Legal terms floated through the air, ancient protocols, precedents. But exceptions. Evan felt very small. A human diplomat finally reached him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. Evan, she whispered, smiling too hard. Just stay quiet. We'll handle this. I didn't do anything, he whispered back. We know, she said. That's the problem. Sarai remained where she was, unmoving, while officials argued around her. She did not look afraid. If anything, she looked relieved. When the session was finally suspended, the hall emptied slowly, like a tide pulling back. Evan was escorted, not grabbed, not restrained, just guided, to a quiet waiting chamber. The walls were smooth and warm, the lighting soft. Sarai was already there. Evan stopped just inside the doorway. This is real, isn't it? He asked. Yes, she said. You broke some kind of law. Yes. And you picked me. A guy you talked to for maybe 10 minutes about coffee. You explained why humans drink something that tastes unpleasant, she said. You said it was about choice. Evan blinked. That stuck with you? Yes. He rubbed his face. Look, Sarai, I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't even know what being a mate means for your people. It means I chose, she said simply, without permission. That is why it is forbidden. That sounds bad. It is, she agreed. There was a pause. Then why do it? Evan asked. Sarai folded her hands. Because my people study patterns. Instinct. Duty. We say choice is an illusion. Humans do not say this. You act as if choice matters even when it is inefficient. That's because it does, Evan said before thinking. Sarai looked at him with quiet intensity. Exactly. Outside the chamber, the galaxy argued. Inside, a human and an alien sat across from each other, neither of them powerful, neither of them trying to conquer anything. And somehow, that was enough to scare everyone else. Far above the station, messages raced toward Earth and beyond. Ancient laws were opened for the first time in centuries. Words like precedent and implication echoed through networks that usually slept. Evan leaned back, staring at the ceiling. This is not how my day was supposed to go, he said. Sarai allowed herself a very small smile. Nor mine, she said, but neither of them took it back. The waiting chamber did not feel like a prison, but it also did not feel like freedom. Evan noticed that first. There were no locks, no guards standing inside the room. Yet every few minutes an official voice asked if he needed anything. Water appeared when he asked for it. Food followed, carefully labeled as safe for humans. Everything was polite. Everything was controlled. Sarai sat across from him, calm as ever. She did not pace. She did not fidget. She seemed almost peaceful, as if a heavy decision had already been made and accepted. Evan could not relate. Someone is definitely yelling about us somewhere, he said, breaking the silence. Yes, Sarai replied. Several someones. That's comforting, Evan muttered. Time passed in strange ways on the station. There was no clear sense of day or night. Evan checked his wrist device out of habit, then remembered it had been taken for security review. He sighed, and leaned back. Eventually, the door opened and 2 figures entered. One was human. The other was not. The human was Ambassador Lena Ortiz, someone Evan had seen only on screens before. She looked tired but focused, her dark eyes sharp. The alien beside her was tall and narrow, with layered skin that shimmered faintly. A senior legal arbiter, if Evan remembered the briefing correctly. "Evan Cole," Ortiz said warmly. "I wish we were meeting under calmer conditions." "So do I," Evan said. "I normally offer coffee." Sarai tilted her head. "He means that sincerely." Ortiz glanced at her, surprised, then smiled despite herself. "We're here to explain what's happening," Ortiz said, becoming serious again, "and what might happen next." The Arbiter folded its upper limbs together. "Delegate Sarai of the Lithari has invoked an ancient personal declaration. While the action violates her species' internal law, it is protected under early Galactic Accord statutes." Evan frowned. "In normal words?" Ortiz took over. "She broke her people's rules." "Big ones. But the galaxy agreed long ago not to interfere when a species follows its own laws, even if those laws are uncomfortable." Sarai nodded. "I will lose my rank, my inheritance rights, my ability to return home freely." Evan's chest tightened. "That's because of me. That is because of my choice," Sarai corrected gently. The Arbiter continued. "However, the human is now involved. Under Lithari law, a declared mate becomes legally entangled." "Entangled how?" Evan asked. "In expectations," the Arbiter said. "Social, symbolic, political." Ortiz stepped closer to Evan. "Right now, some members of the Assembly want to declare you a passive participant and nullify the declaration." "That sounds good," Evan said quickly. "Others," Ortiz continued, "argue that doing so would violate Lithari autonomy and set a dangerous precedent." Sarai spoke softly. "If they nullify it, they declare my will invalid." Evan looked at her. "Is that worse than exile?" "Yes." The room fell quiet. Ortiz sighed. "There's more. Some species are using this situation to push old agendas. They want to test how flexible human ethics really are." Evan blinked. "We're a test case?" "You always were," Ortiz said honestly. "You just didn't know it." Over the next several hours, Evan learned more about galactic law than he ever wanted to know. He learned that the galaxy ran on layers of tradition stacked on top of newer rules, many of which contradicted each other. He learned that less influential species often lost legal arguments, not because they were wrong, but because no one bothered to argue for them properly. And now, Ortiz said, they're about to find out that humans argue very properly. Sarai watched the human ambassador with interest. "Your people defend individuals strongly." "We try," Ortiz replied. "Sometimes we fail. But we don't stop trying." Evan rubbed his hands together. "What am I supposed to do?" "Be honest," Ortiz said. "And don't agree to anything without asking us first." "I wasn't planning on agreeing to anything ever again," Evan said. That earned him a small smile from Sarai. When the next assembly session began, Evan was not placed in the back. He was seated at a neutral platform, alone, visible to all. Sarai stood across from him, equally exposed. The hall felt heavier this time. The lights were dimmer. The mood was serious. A senior counselor addressed the chamber. "We are gathered to determine the status of Delegate Sarai's declaration and its impact on interstellar law." Speeches followed. Long ones, calm ones. Some argued that emotional decisions could destabilize alliances. Others spoke about cultural respect. A few barely hid their annoyance that a human nobody had caused so much trouble. Evan listened, jaw tight. Finally, he was allowed to speak. He stood, hands slightly shaking. I didn't plan this, he said simply. I didn't ask for it. I don't want anyone punished because of me. That was not what many expected. The lights shifted, uncertain. I also don't think choice should be erased because it's inconvenient, Evan continued. If Shirai made a choice, then ignoring it seems wrong, but forcing me into something I didn't choose is also wrong. Murmurs spread. Sarai watched him closely, her expression unreadable. Evan took a breath.
So I'm asking for something simple. Let her choice stand.
And let mine matter too. The counselors conferred quietly. One finally spoke. Human Evan Cole, would you accept the role of mate under Lithari custom? Evan looked at Sarai. Really looked. Not as a symbol, not as a problem, but as a person who had risked everything. No, he said. The word echoed. Sarai did not flinch. Evan continued, quickly.
Not unless she keeps her rights. Not unless she's protected.
I won't benefit from a system that hurts her. The lights flickered wildly now. Ortiz closed her eyes briefly, then smiled. The council erupted into debate again, louder than before, though still controlled. Legal terms flew like sparks. The arbiter who had spoken earlier raised its voice. This response is unprecedented. Yes, another counselor said slowly. But it is consistent. Hours later, when the session ended again, nothing was resolved. But something had changed. Humans were no longer the quiet newcomers. They were the ones asking uncomfortable questions. Back in the waiting chamber, Evan sank into a chair. I think I made it worse, he said. No, Sarai replied. You made it clear. She hesitated, then added, You did not reject me. I rejected the rules, Evan said. Big difference. Sarai considered this, then inclined her head deeply, a gesture of respect. Across the station, messages continued to spread. Other species watched. Some were uneasy. Some were curious. Humanity had not threatened anyone. They had simply refused to accept a broken system, and that, the galaxy was learning, could be far more disruptive. The third day after the declaration began with silence, and that worried Evan more than the shouting had. No officials rushed in. No urgent meetings were announced. The waiting chamber remained calm, almost gentle, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Sarai noticed it too. When systems grow quiet, she said, it usually means decisions are being prepared. That's not comforting, Evan replied, staring at the smooth wall that sometimes showed slow-moving stars. On Earth, silence before a decision usually means someone already decided without you. Sarai folded her hands. Then we are alike in that. Evan laughed softly, then stopped. You're taking this really well. I am afraid, Sarai said honestly. But fear does not change outcomes. Understanding does. That was very not human, Evan thought. But maybe that was why this mattered. Later that cycle, the chamber door opened again. This time, more people entered. Human legal experts, cultural analysts, historians. None of them wore uniforms. They carried tablets and tired expressions. Ambassador Ortiz was with them. We're expanding the team, she said. The assembly underestimated how seriously we'd take this. One of the analysts, an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes, nodded at Evan.
You're not a diplomat. But congratulations, you've triggered the largest legal review since first contact.
Evan groaned. I just wanted to study social patterns. Well, the man said, now you're part of one. Sarai watched the group closely. Your people mobilize quickly. We've had practice, Ortiz replied. When systems are unfair, humans either break them or rewrite them. That sentence traveled fast. Within hours, the assembly halls were filled again, not just with delegates, but with observers. Species that rarely spoke were suddenly paying attention. Old recordings were pulled from archives. Ancient agreements, written in half-forgotten dialects, were translated again. Humans did not shout. They did not threaten. They presented records, case after case, examples where smaller species lost autonomy for their own protection. Times when declarations like Sarai's had been quietly erased because they were inconvenient. Evan watched from his seat as one human historian calmly displayed a 1,000-year-old ruling. This law was meant to prevent coercion, she said. Instead, it became a tool to deny choice. The chamber grew restless. Sarai felt it too. For the first time since the declaration, her calm cracked slightly. They are exposing us, she whispered to Evan.
They're exposing the system, Evan corrected. Big difference.
The Lithari elders finally spoke. Their representative was older, his silver markings faded. His voice carried authority and disappointment.
Sarai, he said, you acted without permission. You shamed tradition. Sarai stood.
I followed tradition. Older than permission. Murmurs spread. Our laws exist to maintain harmony, the elder continued. And yet, Sarai replied, they deny us the right to choose harmony for ourselves. The elder paused. That pause mattered. Evan realized then that this was not just about him, or even Sarai. This was about a galaxy that had grown comfortable deciding for others. A counselor addressed Evan directly.
Human Evan Cole, do you understand the consequences if this declaration is upheld?
Yes, Evan said. They'll have to admit the law isn't perfect. That could destabilize alliances.
Or improve them, Evan replied.
Simple words, heavy impact. Another species delegate spoke up, unexpected. A small crystalline being, whose people rarely challenged rulings. We lost our right to choose leaders under similar reasoning, the being said quietly. We were told it was for balance. The hall shifted. Another voice followed, then another. Stories spilled out, not angry, just tired. Sarai listened, eyes wide. She had believed her act was personal. It was not. The assembly recessed again, this time not in chaos, but in something closer to uncertainty. Back in the chamber, Evan paced. I didn't expect this, he said. I didn't expect all of this. Sarai stood near the window.
Nor did I. But humans respond to injustice with noise. We respond with paperwork, Evan said.
The noise comes later. Sarai turned to him. You could still walk away. Your people would protect you. I know, Evan said. But if I do, they'll make this disappear. And if it disappears, Sarai said softly, nothing changes. Evan stopped pacing. You risked everything without knowing if it would work, he said.
Yes, he nodded slowly. Yeah.
That sounds like humans, too. The next session was different. The assembly did not ask whether Sarai was wrong. They asked whether the law was. That question shook the galaxy. Arguments stretched on, but the tone had changed. Less certainty, more listening. A senior counselor finally spoke. If we uphold this declaration without reform, we legitimize harm. If we nullify it, we deny choice.
Neither is acceptable. Silence.
Ortiz leaned forward. Then changed the framework. You ask for legal evolution, the counselor said. We live in an evolving galaxy, Ortiz replied. Why should law remain frozen? The vote was delayed. Again. But this time, it was not avoidance. It was preparation. When Evan and Sarai were escorted back, neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Sarai said, if they change the law, it will not be because of me. It'll be because you reminded them they could, Evan said. She looked at him, something like wonder in her eyes. You are very dangerous, she said. Evan smiled tiredly. So I've been told. Far from the assembly, on worlds that had never heard of Evan Cole, beings felt something shift, a sense that the rules might no longer be untouchable. And for the first time since joining the galaxy, humanity was not being measured by its weapons or technology. It was being measured by its refusal to look away. The fourth day felt heavier than all the others combined. The station was busier than ever, yet quieter in spirit. Delegates moved slowly, speaking in low voices. Even the floating lights above the halls dimmed more often, as if unsure how bright they were allowed to be. The galaxy was no longer watching out of curiosity. It was watching itself. Evan sat with his hands clasped, staring at nothing in particular. He had slept badly. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw faces. Aliens, humans, beings he did not know the names of, listening, waiting, hoping. He had never wanted that kind of attention. Sarai stood nearby, her posture straight but tense. For the first time since Evan had met her, she looked tired. "You do not regret it," Evan said quietly. It was not a question. Sarai considered.
No, but I understand the cost more clearly now.
"That makes two of us." The door opened and Ambassador Ortiz entered alone this time. Her expression was serious, but not grim. "They want Sarai to speak again," she said. "Publicly, not as a delegate, as herself." Sarai's fingers tightened slightly.
They will question my motives. They already have, Ortiz replied. This is different.
This time, they want to listen. Evan stood. "What about me?" Ortiz met his eyes. "You'll be there. But they're not asking you to defend anything, just to be honest." Again. Evan let out a slow breath. "That seems to be my main qualification. The assembly hall was fuller than it had ever been. Not just representatives, but observers, legal scholars, cultural recorders. This session would be remembered." Sarai stepped forward alone. Her voice carried clearly, without the calm distance she had used before. "I was taught that instinct guides us better than desire," she said. "That choice creates disorder. That permission protects us from ourselves." She paused, letting the words settle. "I believed this. Until I studied humans." There was a ripple of reaction. "Humans are inefficient," Sarai continued. "They argue, they doubt, they fail, often. Yet they allow individuals to choose paths that bring no obvious benefit to the group." She looked directly at the Lithari elders, and still their societies endure. The elders did not interrupt. "I chose Evan Cole not because he is exceptional by galactic standards," Sarai said. Evan felt his ears warm, but because he acted as if my choice mattered, even when it placed him at risk. She turned slightly, including the entire chamber. "If choice is only allowed when it is safe, then it is not choice, it is permission." The silence that followed was deep and complete. A counselor spoke carefully. "You understand that by saying this, you may never return to your people as you were." Sarai inclined her head. "I understand." Evan felt something twist in his chest. When it was his turn, he did not step forward immediately. He looked at Sarai first. She met his gaze and nodded. Just once. Evan faced the assembly. "I don't want power," he said. "I don't want status. I didn't come here to change galactic law." Some lights flickered. Uncertain. "But I won't accept safety that costs someone else their freedom," Evan continued. "If Sarai loses everything because she made a choice, then the system is broken." A counselor leaned forward. "Even if changing it weakens stability?" Evan shrugged slightly. "If stability depends on ignoring people, maybe it deserves to be shaken." That was when the chamber truly shifted. Not with noise, with understanding. The final arguments were quiet, measured, thoughtful. No one accused humanity of manipulation anymore. No one dismissed Sarai as reckless. Instead, the assembly faced a harder question. What did strength actually mean? After hours that felt like days, the senior counselor rose. "We will not force acceptance," she said. "We will not erase choice. We will amend the framework." Gasps spread. "The declaration stands," the counselor continued. "But no bond will be recognized without mutual ongoing consent. No individual will lose rights for exercising choice." Sarai closed her eyes briefly. Evan felt his knees weaken. "This amendment will apply across species," the counselor added. "Effective immediately." That was the moment history changed. Later, in the quiet chamber, Evan sat on the floor, back against the wall. He was laughing softly, half from relief, half from exhaustion. "I think," he said, "we just did something impossible." Sarai sat beside him, closer than before but not touching. "You refused advantage," she said. "That is rare. It felt wrong not to," Evan replied. She turned to him. "Under the amended law, you are free. Entirely." Evan nodded. "So are you." "Yes." There was a pause, gentle and unforced. "And now," Sarai said, "we may choose." Evan smiled, tired but real. "Maybe we take it slow. Coffee, at least." Sarai considered, then smiled as well. A real smile this time. "I would like that." Outside the chamber, messages spread again. But this time, they carried something new. Not fear, not control, but possibility. The station did not celebrate loudly after the decision. There were no bright announcements or dramatic speeches. Instead, the change moved quietly, like a tide that had turned without asking permission. Systems updated, legal frameworks rewrote themselves. Old restrictions faded from active status, replaced by new language that included words many species had avoided for a long time. Mutual choice, ongoing consent, individual protection. Evan Cole slept for almost 12 hours. When he woke, he felt strange, like someone who had finished a long race without realizing when the finish line appeared. The waiting chamber no longer felt like a holding space. The door opened when he approached it. No one checked his status. He was free. Sarai was already awake, standing near the window. She watched the stars drift past the station slowly.
"It feels different," Evan said. "Yes," Sarai replied.
"The systems are no longer watching us." "That's a relief," Evan said. "I don't think I could handle being historically important again today." Sarai turned toward him. "You already are," he groaned. "Please don't say that." She smiled softly. News reached them in fragments. The Lythari Council had formally acknowledged the amended law. Sarai's punishment was withdrawn. Her status was restored, though her role had changed. She was no longer just a delegate. She was a symbol. That made her uncomfortable. "I did not intend this," she told Evan as they walked through one of the station's public gardens. The plants there came from dozens of worlds, shaped to survive together. "I wanted to act honestly, not led."
"Yeah," Evan said. "Humans mess that up all the time, too." Sarai studied him.
"You do not like attention." "I like people," Evan said. "Attention feels loud." Sarai nodded. "That is an accurate description." Humans were invited to address the assembly one final time, not to argue, but to reflect. Ambassador Ortiz spoke briefly, thanking the council for listening. She did not claim victory. "We didn't win," she said. "We participated. That mattered." Evan was not asked to speak again. That mattered too. Later, as preparations were made for departure, Sarai received messages from her home world. Some were supportive, Some were cautious. A few were fearful. Change always scared someone. Evan watched her read them, her expression steady but thoughtful.
You okay?
He asked. Yes, Sarai said. I am learning that approval is not the same as worth. Evan smiled. Humans take a while to learn that too. They stood in silence for a moment. What happens now? Evan asked. Sarai considered.
Now, I decide what I want to do, not what is expected.
And what do you want? Evan asked gently. She met his eyes. I want to learn. I want to understand why humans build meaning from uncertainty.
That sounds like a long project, Evan said.
I am patient. Earth's reception was careful but warm. Humans did not treat Evan as a hero. He was interviewed, yes, but mostly about feelings, not triumphs. That suited him. Sarai visited Earth as a private citizen. That caused more excitement. She experienced rain for the first time. She found it inefficient and beautiful. She tried coffee again and decided she still disliked the taste, but liked the ritual. Evan showed her libraries, parks, small, quiet places where humans went to think.
This world is loud, Sarai said one evening.
Yeah, Evan replied. But it's honest about it. They walked without guards, without schedules. Just two people learning how to exist together. Across the galaxy, the effects spread slowly, but surely. Other species reviewed their laws. Some resisted. Some adapted quickly. A few quietly thanked humanity for opening a door they had been afraid to touch. Humanity gained a reputation. Not as conquerors. Not as saviors, but as people who asked, why not better? That reputation carried weight. Evan returned to his work, though his job description changed. He now studied interspecies ethics. He hated the paperwork. He loved the conversations. Sarai chose to remain with him, not as a mate by law, but as a partner by choice. That mattered most. One evening, as Earth's sun dipped below the horizon, Evan sat beside Sarai on a balcony overlooking the city. You know, he said, the galaxy probably expected us to do something dramatic.
Instead, you made tea.
Yeah, Evan replied. Revolutions don't always look exciting. Sarai leaned slightly closer. Sometimes they look like people refusing to accept less than respect. Evan smiled. Far away, the Galactic Assembly recorded the final summary of the incident. It did not list a battle. It did not list a conquest. It listed a conversation. And beside it, a note that would be studied for generations. Humans did not change the galaxy by force. They changed it by caring when it was inconvenient,